Stop. The word wasn't screamed. It was spoken sharply, but it carried across the courtyard like a whip. Everyone turned toward the fountain in the center of campus, where a scene was unfolding. There, surrounded by 3 upperclassmen, was a girl no one recognized. She was clearly new. She had arrived just minutes ago, clutching a worn backpack and a small stack of textbooks. Her braids shimmered under the sun, her brown skin glowing with nervous energy. She looked like someone who hadn't yet learned the rhythm of this campus, but also like someone who carried herself with a quiet dignity. Her name was Amara Johnson, and this was her very first day of college. But before she could even make it to her first lecture hall, trouble had found her. The ones circling her weren't just random students. They were known around campus: Chad and his crew. Chad, a sophomore with a cocky smirk and too much money in his sneakers, was infamous for picking on freshmen. His friends, Mason and Luke, followed him everywhere, laughing at every cruel joke, ready to back him up whenever he decided to make someone's life miserable. And today, his target was Amara. "Look what we got here," Chad said loudly, his voice dripping with sarcasm. He paced around her like a wolf circling prey. "Freshman delivery? Nobody told me Amazon Prime was this quick." His friends burst out laughing. Mason slapped Luke on the back, pointing at Amara's backpack. "But she thinks she's smart carrying books. Who even reads anymore?" The crowd grew quickly. First a handful of students, then dozens. Phones came out. Some people looked uncomfortable, but nobody stepped forward. This was how things went on campus. Everyone knew Chad ran the courtyard. Amara gripped her books tighter. Her lips parted, but no words came. Her chest rose and fell faster than normal. She wanted to tell them to leave her alone, but the weight of every eye on her kept her frozen. Chad smirked. He lunged forward and yanked her backpack strap hard. The motion ripped one of her textbooks from her grip, sending it tumbling onto the pavement with a dull thud. Pages bent against the stone ground. Gasps rose from the crowd. Amara instinctively bent down to pick it up, but Mason kicked it away like a soccer ball. The book slid across the courtyard, landing near the fountain. "Oops," Mason grinned. "Guess you'll have to chase it." The laughter that followed wasn't just from the bullies. It came from the crowd too, the kind of laughter that made Amara's ears burn hot. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached for her other book. She kept her eyes low, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing her tears. "Leave me alone," she whispered. But Chad heard it, and it made him grin wider. He stepped close enough that his shadow fell over her. "Or what?" he taunted. "You gonna cry, little freshman?" The circle around them grew tighter. More phones raised into the air. Dozens of lenses pointed at her like weapons. Nobody was helping. Nobody was stopping them. Amara's breathing quickened. Her mother's voice floated in her memory, sharp and steady. "Baby, people will test you. They'll try to push you down. But you, never let them break you." She squeezed her fists around the straps of her backpack, her nails digging into the fabric. Not today, she thought. Not me. The crowd expected her to crumble, to cry, to run. But Amara lifted her chin slowly, her eyes meeting Chad's. Her voice, though low, carried like thunder across the courtyard. "Touch me again, and you'll regret it." The laughter died instantly. A ripple of surprise moved through the students. Even Chad's grin faltered for half a second. No one had ever spoken to him like that before. And in that silence, the first real silence since it all began, the game began to shift. The silence from Amara's warning didn't last long. Chad blinked once, then forced a laugh, trying to shake off the weight of her words. "You hear that?" he shouted to the crowd, spreading his arms wide as if he were on stage. "Freshman thinks she's some kind of superhero." The circle erupted again, but this time the laughter wasn't as strong. It carried a nervous edge, like the crowd didn't know if they were supposed to be laughing anymore. Mason, trying to keep the energy going, bent down and scooped up one of Amara's loose papers. He held it high, squinting dramatically. "What's this?" "Math notes." He crumpled it and tossed it over his shoulder. "Newsflash, genius, nobody cares." The laughter swelled again. A girl in the crowd covered her mouth, torn between pity and peer pressure. Another guy elbowed his friend, whispering, "She's done for." Nobody stands up to Chad. Amara bent down to grab another paper. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the urge to scream. She wanted to yell at them to stop. She wanted to demand that someone, anyone, step in. But her mother's words echoed again, pressing down like an anchor. Strength isn't loud, baby. Strength is steady. She inhaled slowly, gathering the loose paper. When she stood, her gaze locked on Chad again. Her face wasn't broken. It was calm. You think you're strong because people laugh at your jokes, Amara said, her voice clear this time. But I've seen boys like you before. All talk. No heart. The crowd froze. The words cut sharper than anything she had said before. Mason's smirk faltered. Luke shifted uncomfortably. Even some of the students with phones lowered them a little, unsure of where this was going. Chad, however, barked out another laugh, though it sounded forced. Oh, tough girl's got a mouth. He stepped closer, towering over her. You think just because you're new, you can come in here and act like you're better than us? Amara didn't flinch. No, she said. I just refuse to be less. A ripple of murmurs spread through the crowd. Some students even nodded. The energy was shifting. Chad noticed it too. His jaw tightened. For the first time, he felt the eyes on him weren't cheering him on. They were watching to see what he would do. He needed to reassert control. All right, enough, he growled. He reached out quickly, grabbing for Amara's arm. And that's when everything changed. Chad's fingers barely grazed Amara's sleeve before she moved. In one smooth motion, Amara twisted his wrist backward, pivoting on her heel. The movement was clean, sharp, something practiced. Chad's face contorted in pain as he let out a yelp, stumbling forward to his knees. The courtyard erupted in gasps. A few students even cheered, their voices ringing out above the chaos. Did you see that? Someone shouted. She just dropped Chad, another yelled, almost gleefully. Chad tried to regain control, but Amara had already released him. She stepped back, standing tall, her breathing calm and steady. You broke my wrist. Chad cried, clutching his hand. His voice cracked, making the words sound more pathetic than intimidating. Amara shook her head slowly. If I wanted to break it, you'd know. The crowd went wild. Some laughed openly now, not at Amara, but at Chad. The once feared bully was on his knees, whining like a child. Mason and Luke froze. They had seen Chad pick fights dozens of times. They had laughed while he shoved smaller students, teased others, and strutted around campus. But this was different. Luke whispered, Man, what do we do? Mason muttered back, I don't know. She's not like the others. Amara adjusted her backpack, her voice steady. My father's a Navy SEAL. He taught me how to defend myself. This, she motioned at Chad, was nothing. The courtyard buzzed with energy. Students whispered, eyes wide. Some grinned in awe. Others stared at Amara with newfound respect. Chad scrambled to his feet, face red. You'll regret this, he spat, but the venom in his words didn't land. Not anymore. The power had shifted. The crowd knew it. Amara didn't respond. She didn't need to. Her silence said everything. And then, another voice cut through the noise. A voice that carried authority, calm and firm. Enough. All heads turned. The voice belonged to Dr. Reynolds, head of the Student Ethics Board. A tall man with silver hair and sharp eyes. He had been standing near the edge of the courtyard the entire time, watching. The bully stiffened. Chad tried to compose himself, but his face was still red, his wrist sore. Sir, she attacked me. Chad blurted out. We were just talking to her, and she. Talking. Dr. Reynolds raised an eyebrow. Is that what you call grabbing, shoving, and destroying her property? Because I saw everything. A hush fell over the courtyard. The students recording knew they had captured gold. Every second of it. Chad's arrogance, Amara's warning, her flawless defense, and now, the professor's judgment. Mason and Luke exchanged panicked looks. Chad opened his mouth again, but no words came. Dr. Reynolds stepped forward, his eyes narrowing. You three are bullies. And this is not a playground. It's a college. You will be facing disciplinary action immediately. A few students clapped quietly. Others nodded in agreement. The tide had fully turned. Amara bent down to gather her books again, but this time she wasn't alone. Several students rushed forward to help, picking up papers and stacking her textbooks neatly. A girl whispered, You were amazing, as she handed Amara a notebook. Amara gave her a small smile. For the first time that day, she didn't feel alone. Dr. Reynolds turned back to Amara. His expression softened. And you, welcome to our college. I'm sorry your first day was met with cruelty. But know this, what you showed today was courage. Don't ever lose that. The courtyard clapped louder now. Not just for Dr. Reynolds, but for Amara. Chad and his crew, red-faced and defeated, slipped away through the crowd. For once, no one followed them. No one laughed at their jokes. No one looked impressed. The power they once held had vanished in less than 10 minutes. That night, Amara sat in her dorm room with her books stacked neatly beside her bed. She scrolled through her phone, overwhelmed by the flood of notifications. Clips of the incident had spread like wildfire across campus. Some videos had already reached thousands of views. Comments poured in. "She's fearless." Finally, someone stood up to Chad. "Legend already." Amara set the phone down, her chest tightening, not with fear, but with a strange mixture of pride and relief. She hadn't set out to be a hero. She had only wanted peace. But life had pushed her into the spotlight, and she had refused to bow. She thought again of her mother's words. Never let them break you. The next morning, as she walked across campus, things felt different. Students nodded at her, smiled, even waved. Some whispered, but their tones weren't mocking anymore. They were respectful. One guy jogged up to her. "Hey, Amara, right? That was epic yesterday. If you ever need backup, I'm there." Another girl grinned. "You don't even know. You changed the whole vibe of this place." Amara thanked them politely, but inside, she remained calm. Respect was good, but she hadn't fought for their approval. She had fought for herself. Across the courtyard, Chad and his crew lingered near the fountain. But something was different now. Their heads were low, their voices quiet. When Chad noticed Amara walking by, he quickly looked away. Amara didn't gloat. She didn't smirk. She simply walked forward, her back straight, her eyes steady. She whispered under her breath, just for herself, "You didn't break me." And with that, the girl who had started her first day in fear ended it with something far greater: strength, dignity, and a new reputation whispered across campus. The girl who stood her ground.